because at the end of the day, I still want to be able to I don't dislike George Washington. I don't dislike even some of the most racist people in history. But I want to know their history, but I also want to know not only that, you know, hey, they were whatever, but I also want to know about the Shirley Chisholms. I also want to know about the Frederick Douglasses. And not even Nat Turner. I want to know more about Nat Turner than him just being some revolutionary. I want to know the Nat Turner that was out in the fields. I want to know the Nat Turner that grew up as a kid. I don't want to know just the narrative. You know, tuned in, start begin, start. Tuned in, start begin, start. Tuned in, start begin, start. Tuned in, start begin, start.
My food time, hold it up and smoke it. Transgression of progression of a war we ain't asked for. Transgression of progression of a war we ain't asked for.
It's madness, yo. All the things that we could talk about.
Call it.
But let's talk about these urban circumstances real quick.
And basically it's
we got this.
So
revolution.
Winner's frosty hand. Muhammad is the fame's name, forever stand.
Standing on royal fusing of justice for the few, ridiculed by the pale terrorists, bent on genocidal obsession, rooted in fear of neglection and abandonment, fueled by nightmares of ancestors' jealousy.
Truth, because at the end of the day, I still want to be able to I don't dislike George Washington.
The kind of friends I think all friends should be like my friends. My friends are the kind of friends I think everyone needs. My friends see the things at times I don't see. My friends hate the police.
What has changed?
Are deemed the criminals, and the blacks are deemed the criminals.
Shut up and help.
Reflection ain't nothing but the inner child trying to see you. You gonna look? You gonna pick up that book?
Lord, keep me far from the faith. Guide me through night and day. Teach me your ways. Show me the righteous way to sway. Lord, can you teach me, please? Show me the way, I'd say. Good morning, 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 good morning. This morning I wanted to, I'm on hiatus, doing my elbow. But I went to an event last night that was, let's talk about racism. And man, I don't even know where to start, because I feel like we always have these conversations on the daily. It's not on the daily, but it just seems like anytime that we sit here and something comes up, right? What's the first thing that people want to do? They always want to get together and do a town hall. They want to get together and talk about the issues, right? But it's like they only want to talk about the racism, right? They never want to talk about the systemic, because the systemic is what, honestly, at the end of the day, is what is hurting black and brown people, right? And it's not the racism we can deal with, right? That's shit that we can either live with or we can learn with and we can deal with it, right? We're never in my eyes, I feel like we will never, with the way that the world is, unless we really start educating honestly and we start having conversations. I don't think, and honestly, it's beyond conversations at this point. It's way beyond just having a conversation for me anyways. But I wanted to play a video because I wanted to explain um, the difference between racism and systemic racism. Because when we're talking about racism, right? Because what I took from that last night, right? This event in Rochester that is not in our town, right? In which Rochester isn't a town, it's a city. But for me, the way that I perceived last night, again, this is just my opinion, is they wanted to talk about the individual racism that's going on, but never talk about holding their boss accountable, the system, right? So that's what I want people and to see, and hopefully that people understand we're never going to be able to change individual racism. The only way we're going to be able to do that is through education and compassion and understanding. Otherwise, we are never going to be able to get when it comes to racism. So I want to play this video. And I hope you guys find it interesting and it's a very good explaining. So,
hey, so I want to talk real quick about the difference between systematic and systemic. I know one of the phrases that we've all been hearing a lot right now is systemic racism. And from time to time, I'll hear systematic and systemic being used interchangeably. I think specifically as people of color, it's important for us to know the difference between systematic and systemic. Why? Words create things.
right.
The world that we live in is word activated. Words have power. Words affect your understanding. Your understanding affects your perspective. And your perspective affects your approach. It's important that we're using the right words and we understand what we're saying, specifically as it relates to systemic racism. So let's use the example of a virus. So, what happens when you catch the flu? You get body aches, you get a headache, you might get the sniffles, you might have nausea. Your entire system is affected. You have a systemic issue. What happens when you catch the flu? You try to remedy it. You take medicine every day. You make sure you get rest every day. You make sure you have fluids every day. So you have a systematic approach to remedy the sickness within your body. So that's like one analogy that I can think of that paints a picture of the difference between systematic and systemic. If something is systemic, it is indicative or a characteristic of an entire system. When something is referred to as being systematic, it's talking about the approach or the method of doing something. What we're dealing with, what people of color are dealing with, is systemic racism. Racism that exists in the criminal justice system, racism that exists in the financial system, racism that exists in the education system. It's systemic racism. Like a virus, it affects every aspect of those systems. A result of systemic racism is systematic behaviors that underline systemic racism. So I'll give you an example. Racial profiling by police officers, systematically choosing people of color to pull over because there's a broken headlight, because they rolled through a stop sign, because they were blasting their music. That is a systematic approach. racism in the education system, not allowing people of color in certain schools, not ensuring that they have proper school supplies, not ensuring that they receive proper funding, systematic discrimination in the financial system, redlining districts, ensuring that people of a certain demographic don't live in a certain neighborhood. So, generally speaking, systemic racism is racism that exists in an entire system. That systemic racism perpetuates systematic discrimination against people of color. Having said that, when we eradicate systemic racism, we will eradicate the systematic behavior and approach that underlines it.
So I hope people understand and see what she was talking about, because that's one thing that I want to talk about today is racism, right? Because I see, and I've said this before, as somebody who authored a resolution proclaiming racism a public health crisis. I realized myself during the process, and even after it being passed and doing more research, that when you just put racism out there, you're just talking about racism, right? You're not talking about the actual systemic racism that we're talking about, because we're talking about policies, right? We're talking about, it's one thing that even like I said, I want to discuss what happened last night in Rochester, Minnesota. They had an event, a town hall, per whatever you want to call it, and I'm going to play the video, but I want to play certain questions that were asked, and then when people spoke, because I'm going to spotlight a few things, right? There was, and I had to leave at around like 8:30 last night, so I missed Nashana speaking, and I'm pissed that I missed Nashana speaking for the simple fact of that these people, nobody wanted to hold Mayor Norton, the Rochester Police Department, the Olmsted County Sheriffs. It wasn't even about holding people accountable, because it's one thing that I learned last night is that when it comes to certain things, they don't give a fuck, right? What we learned last night is what I originally thought from the get-go, is that we'll never, unless somebody comes out and says that they did this, that they put the nigger in cups on the bridge, unless they come forward, we'll never know who did it, right? So this goes to the Rochester public school system. I don't believe that it was a kid. I don't believe that it was a Century High School student. And I know that was put out there last night, right? My thing of it is, why people want to, we don't know who did it. It could have been a Rochester police officer. It could have been a Rochester public school teacher, could have been an employee, it could have been a sheriff's deputy, it could have been a judge, it could have been a doctor, because at the end of the day, we deal with racism in every facet of our lives, right? And that's what I'm gonna tell you right now, because when I start playing this video last night, the first question that was asked was that a First Amendment freedom? Was that a First Amendment freedom? That's really up for debate, I guess, to some people. Some people don't see it as being a racist word, nigger, because we say nigga. And that was brought up last night. People were like, well, and I don't know if that was brought up in a broad sense. I think it was more brought up in side conversations. But I will say this, there is a difference between nigger and nigga. There is a difference. right? And this is why I say words matter, and this is why I wanted to talk about racism and the fact that there is different, because words do have meaning and words have power, and that's one thing we as Black people have to understand. Because one thing that was said last night was, Wale, who is ahead of the Negroes Always Asking Caucasians Permission organization. We know it as the NAACP, right? But he goes up there and says that he's a Black person of color, and and I want to say this is what frustrates me, is because nobody called it out, right? And then it's when you say certain things, people look at you sideways, or they look at you funny, right? And it's like, why? We might have a difference of opinions, but at the end of the day, everybody that was up there, that was these so-called panelists, right? You had the white mayor, you had the white superintendent, you had a white representative from the police department, you had a white sheriff, and none of those people up there like to even hold their colleagues accountable, right? Because when it came to Olmsted County Sheriff Deputy Matt Adamson, Corporal Matthew Adamson, who was trying to have sex and probably did have sex with young kids. And yet when that was brought, when he was busted by an individual that does pedophile predator type shit on YouTube, they charged him and wanted to get him, instead of actually investigating the evidence and everything that he brought to them. And it was like they demonized the individual who came forward because of his past, and not the present behavior of one of their colleagues. And that really just blew me away, because of the simple fact they go up there and they talk about accountability, but yet people die in Mr. Torgerson's jail every year because of the simple fact of that some of them are Black and they don't believe that they have medical issues, or that they're faking so that people die. And we don't take that serious. Or we have representatives, hospitals like Mayo Clinic, that are a big fucking part of the problem, and people don't see that. They don't call out the individuals that die in Mayo Hospital for unknown reasons that shouldn't have died. And that, what's crazy, that is going to come out one day. And because here's the thing of it is, everything that I'm saying, the individuals that have been, bless up, brother, bless up, that have died in Olmsted County Jail, these stories will come out one day. Please believe that. These stories with the Mayo Hospital, Mayo Clinic, of a patient being beat up, a Black woman being beat up and dying. She went in. This is the crazy thing of it, man. I'm telling you, all of this shit will come out, and people will be like, damn, is Mayo Clinic? Yes, that shit will come out. So they only want to talk about the Minnesota nice, but they don't want to talk about the real fucking issues. So let me start playing this video, because this shit, it blew me, man. I gotta.
Unfortunate posts on social media. And one of the things I've done, just as someone removed the signage up on the wall, is
So what they're talking about is they're talking about First Amendment rights, and do we have First Amendment rights when it comes to hate speech, right? So she's literally telling people just to ignore it, look the other way, the normal, right?
are helpful. But I also think because it happened, we need to talk about it. And so I'm here to work with you to create a sense of community, which I think is lacking not just here, but around the country, because we are no longer willing to work together. We just find ways to divide each other. And I'm just going to say right here and right now, and I'll hand it off. Talking about racism, talking about inequity is not division. And that is posted on my page almost every day. It's not division. It is the opposite of that. It is addressing the issues that are in front of us, and we need to do it respectfully, consistently, and I hope you'll help.
If anybody has any comments, we have a question? A comment?
Please, come to the microphone.
I'm wondering, this will probably be for Mayor Gordon, the law enforcement officers. What happened is completely deplorable, and he did this from his terms. Is there a law that we can actually prosecute on, or just cover record free speech?
I'm going to hand it off to the police as well, but we are in a dilemma right now in this country trying to decide, particularly with social media. This was not social media, but particularly with social media, what is your First Amendment right to say what you think, and what is hate speech and detrimental to a community? And I'm very concerned about where we're at. I think I was really disappointed in the last Supreme Court ruling, and I hope, at least on the social media end, they would empower us to be able to control our own social media accounts, and they did not do that. I've been told by the chief, and I'll let law enforcement say, but if we knew who had done this, because this was a question that was asked, if we knew, charges could be pressed, but it's a misdemeanor, right? That's what it is. It's a misdemeanor charge. So I don't know, that doesn't help us here, right? That doesn't help how people feel. So we've got to find other ways to deal with this, how we feel and how we're going to move forward.
So yeah, I just, again, the mayor pretty much covered it. Again, one thing I know is whoever put that up there was intent on causing harm to this community. So whether that's a crime or not is relevant, but it isn't, right? It's like, so again, I think coming together and trying to work on that harm, I'm just gonna be honest with you, it's a losing battle to try to drive the hate out of people. So again, I think we need to focus our work in community building and inclusiveness and making people feel welcome, so the harm is lessened, it will never be removed, but the harm is lessened by use of terms that are offensive, that are have historic connection to oppression in a system that doesn't always work very well for everybody.
I want to remind the panel, can you please stand when you speak? On you stand, thank you.
Yeah, I just want to respond to that. So Dr. King said, and I'm going to paraphrase here, it's yes, you may not be able to force somebody to love you, but if we can stop them from lynching people, that's important too. So there is a role for law enforcement here. So it's not whether it's a misdemeanor, we have to hold people accountable. So it's not just a kumbaya conversation. We have to hold people accountable. The second thing we need to do is to have conversations. Our kids are being traumatized by this. Business owners are being traumatized by this. And community members are being traumatized by this. So this is not a little deal, this is a big deal in terms of what kind of community do we want. Now, together as a people, we can certainly do that. But this is not well, we have no idea who did this. Maybe these are knuckleheads or maybe this is a community member. It doesn't really matter who did it, but we from the NAACP tell you, if you know something, say something. And it's not about being punitive, but let's use this as a learning opportunity, because things like this really hurt the fabric of our society. And that's what we don't want. And so we need to do this in partnership with law enforcement. We need to do it in partnership with the city, the county, and we definitely need to do this in partnership with you. So we are saying not in our town. This is not something that, started from the end of WorkCP, but why reinvent something? So not in our town will our children be unsafe. Not in our town will racism exist. And not in our town will we make sure that we have a society where there's discrimination. So we all want to focus on love. We want to center on love. But we also have to talk about this. This is not just a kumbaya. There's a lot of hurt, in the community right now.
I just want to add one more thing to what Captain Stillwell said, and that is, and this is not intended to be exclusive, even though it kind of feels like it. We have to have an intended victim, and it's part of it. Who is harmed? Yes, the whole community is harmed. We all are harmed by this, absolutely. But the prosecution to actually, unless we can figure it out, and I look to the PD because it's their case. So we're off unless something else shows up. But there has to be that part to it. So just understand that too. But on the other side, with what Wally just said, there's people out there that know who did it, who participated, and these generally, we'll see, maybe they did film themselves with it because they're so proud of it. There's all kinds of ways we can figure this stuff out. And then we figure out, okay, is there something else that we can do or could be done? Is it school districts, students, I don't know. Where does it come from? But that's the part of it, is identifying a victim, and it has to be a person, generally in those cases, to get to that point. So we can't arrest everybody. We have to have part of it, so it has to be specific to some person or an individual with some intent behind it. That's the hard part. Thank you.
Okay, real quick, everybody. So we know that everyone has a bunch of questions. People want to make comments, but we also want to get through this in an organized fashion. We want to be respectful of everybody's time. We got a very large summon today, and believe me, I'm very glad that so many people showed up. But we also got to be realistic about this thing, because I got to get my sleep tonight. You may not, but I don't plan to be here until 11 p.m. So just let y'all know. So y'all may be here, but I will not be here that late. So in respect of time, everybody, that's why we did.
So I want to go into some more of the video. I want to get to certain parts of it that I feel like were important, and I'm trying to. What's this? Okay, here's the other one. So I'm gonna play this, and this is, you're gonna hear an owner of one of a Black-owned business that is right down the actual street from where it was found. So I want to play this real quick and just listen to Michelle speak.
About how we prepare our students to see diversity as a positive and to be anti-racist. I think it lets us off the hook, because then you can think, well, it's a kid, it's developmental, they didn't understand what the N-word means. They may not. In today's society, it is not a stretch to think that a fully grown adult put that up there. And so I want to say, we are thinking about what this means for us, for our schools. But I said to some of the colleagues I talked to today, I don't think we should let the community off the hook by thinking this was something that just a knucklehead kid did, because we don't know.
Hi, my name is Michelle. I am the owner of Michelle's Kitchen, and I actually just got located where that bridge is. I sit right underneath that bridge, and it was there Saturday evening, actually, yesterday. I was really busy. I didn't think anything of it other than Facebook goes straight to social media, is where I see all the posts and things like that. But I'm actually thinking about relocating because of that. I don't want to, but I feel like I just started there not even a month ago, and now I'm seeing slurs like that on the bridge. So it's offensive, it's intimidating, and when I I close at 9 o'clock. I'm by myself most nights, and it's kind of worrying. So yeah, I just hope that it can take into consideration that something is actually done.
Okay, so we'll continue on, and as I said, we'll try to get as many community comments in. This microphone is not working for me. And I'm fairly loud. And I'm using my inside, not even outside, but leave that. Okay, so the next question that we have in space for is going to be for Wale. And Wale, the question that I want to pose to you is, in what ways do you currently believe that the current law enforcement...
Oh, I want people to listen to this. Please listen to what Wale said.
Some of the systemic racism in this country and in the city. And even though we are aware that there are efforts to reform and to change, what specific actions do you advocate for to bring about that change?
That's a deep question, and I appreciate
a deep question that he never answered.
The question. So, law enforcement has an important role. You know, I think first of all, we think about the mindset. A lot of times, what I hear is, "Oh, it's not our fault, or we didn't do this. This is Minneapolis, or this is Atlanta." I think that's the wrong mindset. It is true that whatever is happening in Minneapolis or happening in Atlanta is not what's happening in Rochester. But the history of law enforcement can be traced to slavery. My family, I have people in my family that are in law enforcement, military as well as police. So this is not a question of do we value law enforcement or not. And so a lot of times there's that mindset that, well, all eyes are on us. Well, yes, all eyes should be on you because it's a higher calling. And so that also goes to the accountability piece. This is a layered question because there have been several incidents in town where I think the responses should have been something different. You know, from the NAACP, we hear stories and incidents of people being stopped. We have stories of businesses, you know, feeling that they've been targeted unfairly. I respect what Ken said in terms of we had no idea who did this. Yes, we had no idea who did this. But there's the proximity piece. There's also the trauma piece. Somebody, a student, committed suicide on that bridge. Right? So this is serious stuff. And that's why I'm really ticked off right now. But back to law enforcement, I think there are multiple things that we can do. First of all, be in partnership, and obviously the collaboration with Barbershop Talk and SIR is great. Engage with the NAACP, we're not your enemies. We are here with collaboration. We want to hold our society to higher standards. We believe in a society where everybody is treated equally. There's an important role for law enforcement there. You talked about restorative justice. Yes, that's part of it. Community policing is also part of it. But our law enforcement, as well as our community members, need to be able to see, that is my son, that is my brother. We need to get to that mindset of being my brother and sister. If we do that, again, that's the mindset. If we do that, then if you're stopping somebody, well, I'm seeing.
Hold on. I want to get to another speaker it was Annie Mac. And man, I don't know what to say exactly, but Annie is, she gives me hope, man. I know that, you know what I'm saying? She does give me the courage and the motivation to keep going. So, and she points out a lot of things. I just thought it was that nobody really, maybe, I don't know, maybe because she is so accessible. So, but I want to get to this part of Annie Mac, and then there is another speaker too after this too. So.
Try to get it, let's try to keep it moving.
All right, I am picking up what you're putting down. And so I'll be mindful of, my name's Annie Mack, and I'm a longtime resident of Rochester. And first of all, I'm gonna acknowledge what's in my body right now, because I think as Black people, I'm gonna talk about Black folks because I'm Black. I'm gonna be very specific. I don't wanna use general terms. I don't wanna go to any other isms. I don't wanna center anything else other than Blackness right here, right now. As a Black woman, what I feel in my body right now, what it took for me to walk in the doors. I wanna own that. Because in order for me to survive in this culture, in this climate, I have to put down, when I walk in a space, I have to put on a shield, a front. I have to take the things that make me human, right? I've had to caretake emotions, caretake everything beyond what I can even control, but yet I'm supposed to be responsible for that. So I'm gonna be responsible being in my body and being present and acknowledging the generations of harm and hurt that takes place. Even when I go to the Quick Trip and I see a back of blue on a truck used to be a truck, and now it's become a symbol of so much more. So I'm gonna acknowledge that and allow myself to truly feel and be human. I don't want to be in control. Because when I was in control, when I downplayed the rage that I had, when I had to assimilate in order to survive within this, I started to die. My hair started to fall out. You see, I started to lose focus about who I was and where I came from because I needed to survive in this space, and I'm over that. So tonight, I'm gonna honor that. My decolonization, my liberation. I'm past equality, I'm past equity. I'm looking for liberation at this point. And if you know your history, you understand that in liberation, we can't be friends, we can't collaborate. I don't want you to be a part of my healing nor my liberation. You can't show up in that way. So when I hear words like collaboration and partnership, you're asking me to step back into a space that I've had to work really hard to come out of. And I have brains about that. I don't want to hear that. What I do want to hear is accountability, and even beyond accountability, I want shit to be burned down. I'm open. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to be a part of the shit. Listen, I'm gonna get real with y'all. Real. This incident, horrific, harmful, but if you know, you know. Right? We have been there, saw that. We know it's a symptom of the insidious and not so insidious, covert, overt shit that has been taking place, right? It's been normalized. If you're not enraged, if you don't feel something, we need to examine that.
You know, that's one thing that that I think for a lot of people it went over their heads, right? Because of the fact that people should be enraged, right? There's not going to be any accountability. The city isn't using this as a teaching moment. They're using it for a clout moment. I'm going to say that again, right? A clout moment. And I'm going to get into that after that, why I say why this was, for me, this wasn't about actual getting to the core issues of racism, because we don't need to be talking about individual racism. Only way we're going to change that is through education, in which they don't want to educate our children. So let me be quiet and let Miss Mac speak. Oh, there we go, that shit again.
Here's the thing. People, white supremacists, I'm gonna use specific language, are making their way to this space because we don't check and hold accountable to the extreme. They are making their way. When I drive as a musician, I see all kinds of stuff. Now you're 5 minutes outside. Stewartville, Orinoco, All those spaces. I see Trump, back the blue. And we know that's code for C. If you realize what you've been given, we've been given this really amazing superpower where we understand coded language, we understand spaces that are coded, we understand all that. And we make you polite to your face and make you feel like, well, we're hip, I'm hip. And I will speak on behalf of those who hold that superpower that we've been given for our survival. And so when I see that, not even 5 minutes, or like I said, at the Quick Trip, my question is, I'm from North Minneapolis, and I remember when the police came and waged war in our hood, in our neighborhood, and they took out Black youth, and there was no cell phones. It was the word of mouth of what happened, and we know that doesn't hold any type of water or anything like that. I witnessed the gangs that fought back against the cops because we were being picked off left and right, coming up into our houses, instilling fear, terrorizing us. The retaliation of that, I'm not going to come for you, but your family too. I lived through that. And for our survival, the gang stepped up. And I remember, it's funny because you're like, we can't arrest everybody, but I remember being on the block as a kid, and they arrested 20 people. All at once. Who did what? But they had enough room and money and resources to arrest 30, 40, 50 people. Round them up. It was like a thing. It was an event to come into our neighborhood and round people up. They found you at your schools. They found you everywhere. Blows my mind. With all the technology that we have, we can't figure out who did what. So my question is, the special task force, if they came into my neighborhood for the drugs, for the gangs, where's the special task force that is coming into the police department, the city government, the county, the educational system to come in and eradicate these people who have infiltrated to where they're teaching our kids, high school teachers that have a reputation for being difficult, 20, 30 years, oh, you don't want that teacher. Or no, they turn out to be a white supremacist on purpose, doing the diligent work of white supremacy. My question is, the solution is, and I don't want to be in collaboration, I want the community to have that task force where we get to be a part and say what our liberation, our healing, our intention looks like. You don't get to be a part of that at all. So tell me, when does that get established? When my tax money, because I see it and it goes. I want a special task force for white supremacy. Because the math ain't math. I live in a place that was a majority of white folks. I was just reading. And I was putting lots of those numbers. And I was going to come in here with some numbers, some data. I was going to break it down because we love numbers. Right? The uptick of the intention of white supremacist infiltration. And if I say it correctly, that is every area of my life. When I go to the doctor, when I go to the store, my kids go to the school, when I have to, everywhere I turn, infiltrated. So when do we start to look at our community with so much scrutiny that we find them and we clean house just like they used to clean house 20 on the block where I'm from? That's what I have to say.
So before we move on, is there anyone that want to comment on any next question? Thank you, Brother, because this conversation ain't always comfortable. The conversation ain't always comfortable, but every voice is important.
Now, we're just going to say that I understand where India is coming from. That's trauma. What you're hearing is trauma. When we go into the doctor's offices, that's how we're treated. When we go into the stores, that's how we're treated. And that's deep-rooted trauma. You know what I'm saying? But at the end of the day, we still need to find a way how we're going to be able to move forward from that trauma. You know what I'm saying? Oh, you talking about the officers?
So there was a question about holding an accountability committee, a task force, a special task force for accountability to identify the racism in the system and also in the community that attacks us from different directions and visible areas.
Yeah, I'm not sure I got a question there. I certainly understand the perspective that, you know, her experience is way different than mine or most people in Rochester, and I get that. You know, how money gets spent in different places is in some way above my pay grade, but in reality, I do believe collaboration is a better way to go, but I understand why there's no trust that collaboration can work in parts of the community. So I think we have to own that.
Okay, we're gonna move on to the next comment. We don't have a lot of time left, so we want to really just keep pushing through these comments, please.
Okay, I'm a little nervous, which is kind of shocking probably because usually I'm not.
Hold on. So I want to get to another speaker, because she lit up the room, man. Oh yeah, here she go. So I'm gonna play this.
We had a student walk out of class crying. She came to find me. Nothing was done. I spoke with Nate, I believe was the principal's name. Yeah, he was the principal last year, so he did nothing about it. I made a report, so you go look up, there's a report on it. They told me I can't do anything as ESP security. I was not allowed to do anything. I'm not allowed to say anything. I can't tell anyone outside of the school what goes on in the school, even if it's something like that that makes me uncomfortable, because now I have to watch my back while I'm at work. There has been people who have made threats to others, to students that are staff. That is also written some stuff that I wasn't here for that, but it was confirmed by a lot of staff members that it did happen. He still currently works here. I was supposedly cut because of budgets, but I know it was because I was reporting all the racism that was going on. And I actually met someone else.
Hold on. Wow.
Same thing.
Let me I got to, yeah, damn.
You know, and he says, no, pay attention to your surroundings, to even when you're just taking out the trash. And I'm thinking, you're just too paranoid. You're too paranoid, sweetie. We used to be able to keep our doors open and this, that, and other. Well, we can't no more. And as I've been here since '89. As I've been here, we're locking our doors. We're hearing about shootings. We're seeing bodies in the ditches. And this is causing me fear. I love Rochester, but I need for things to not continue to progress. So pay attention. I know it's the last thing. We used to have a neighborhood, no, seriously, for everybody. We used to have neighborhood watches and all that kind of stuff, and you probably still do because you have a little neighborhood park and stuff. But really and truly, you don't have to be a part of an organization. It used to be that when I grew up, we knew our neighbors. I've been in the same place for 3 years and I don't know, the community police itself. I've been in the same place for 3 years and I don't even know my neighbor's name. All I know is, hey neighbor, because that's the type of person I am. And then yes, they respond and stuff. Pay attention, get to know your neighbors, get to know the things that's going on in your community, because we can do something.
Hello, my name is Kiara. I used to work at Century High School last year. I have experienced a lot of racism besides Century High School from staff and students alike. There were situations that I addressed last year and it was swept under the rug. There was an incident where a student was in class. I'm pretty sure a lot of you know the story I'm asking about it. There was a kid who passed away from going to knock at the wrong door and got shot. I think we all know this story. They were talking about it in class, and I guess the teacher thought it was okay to start cracking jokes to them and the students. We had a student walk out of class crying. She came to find me. Nothing was done. I spoke with Nate, I believe was the principal's name. Yeah, he was the principal last year, so he did nothing about it. I made a report, so you go look up, there's a report on it. They told me I can't do anything as DSP security. I was not allowed to do anything. I'm not allowed to say anything. I can't tell anyone outside of the school what goes on in the school, even if it's something like that that makes me uncomfortable, because now I have to watch my back while I'm at work. There has been people who have made threats to others, to students that are staff. That is also written some stuff that I wasn't here for that, but it was confirmed by a lot of staff members that it did happen. He still currently works here. I was supposedly cut because of budgets, but I know it was because I was reporting all the racism that was going on. And I actually met someone else who just said the same thing, was cut from Century before I got here for the same thing. Basically, anytime we speak up, we get cut. Now there's an excuse for their budget cut, so you can't be here. But then you keep the person that's been walking around the school calling students monkeys to their face. And then the person got suspended, which is the staff member for 1 week, and he continued to harass me. Once I found this out, I looked at him completely different, didn't want to talk to him. So I dealt with that. There were situations where students would get into it with each other, and the principal would push it under the rug. It's not a big deal. Or the time that the assistant principal got in my face and pointed and talked to my daughter's student in front of students for telling the student she had to go to class and she didn't like how I delivered the message. There was a lot going on last year. I'm actually happy that you guys cut me because I wasn't uncomfortable. I didn't really desire to come to work because of everyone else. I desired to come because of the African American students. Anyone of color who did not have someone who looked like them to work. I still see those same students out in public, and they always ask me when am I coming back to work, right? They always ask me when I'm gonna come back, because they're not comfortable here, they go through so much. So seeing that sign up there is not a shock for me. It was just, this is my moment to come and speak for those kids. My question is, if there was a suicide on the bridge and now there's some stuff put on the bridge, why are there still cameras? Are you guys gonna put cameras on the bridge now? Question.
Yeah, so we'll give a question. So somebody on the panel want to take that question, and then we're gonna go and get the last 3 comments.
I think that's a great question. And so hopefully the mayor or city and county official should be able to answer that, because we don't want any more of this. We don't want a situation where next year this happened and there is no camera. So how do you learn? What are the lessons learned from this? So I think that's a great thing. I appreciate what the sister said. I will just sort of share this. If you look at everybody around here, some of the voices that are missing are the students, right? And that is something that we need to make sure is happening. So next week, we're having a town hall focused on student voices. But she just gave a glimpse of what students across Rochester Public Schools, are experiencing, and it's more a symptom of what's happening nationally as well. So.
Everybody, hope I'm loud enough. I too have anxiety, and the I was not cut from Century High School. I actually was forced to resign from Rochester Public Schools. I too, as an employee of Rochester Public Schools, witnessed as an equity specialist every single day on the job, discrimination towards African American students. And every time I reported it, I received some form of being reprimanded. This caused a lot of severe anxiety for me. I also serve as a community leader. I run the Journey program. I founded this organization to help underserved youth and people who don't have a voice. So social justice and advocacy is the core root of the work that we do. One thing I can say is that a lot of you faces up here today have at one point of time supported the work that we've done. And most recently, we've held a lot of town halls concerning this particular situation surrounding the Black community. I like to tell people, I don't like to use the word BIPOC because they like to take the B out, which stands for Black. As a Black woman, I felt like I had to leave this town that I've served for 12 years from being stalked. I've had everything from social services called and reported on my children, my job threatened, my housing, my mail stopped. The discrimination goes far, but it's not about my personal situation because I got me, right? I'm being dealt with, right? I got me. But I'm here, I'm not going nowhere. I'm still serving the Rochester community. Our grants were denied, continue to be denied. I'm still a Black-owned business, right? And Black-owned businesses continue to struggle. We talked about that, but we're at a point now where we're done talking. I want to say to Mr. Patel, you're doing a wonderful job. There needs to be more work done. To the police, you're doing a wonderful job. You guys acknowledge systemic racism and you recognize that there needs to be more work that needs to be done. Mayor Norton, you show up, you understand that there's more work that needs to be done. Thank you, Wale, for putting this together, as well as Barbershop Talk. But I want you guys to understand who I am and my history. I come from the basements of the South Side of Chicago of Operation Push Coalition with Reverend Jesse Jackson. And in that basement, along with our ancestors in history, there was never once a time where they asked permission to do anything. What did they do? They collaborated and they did it on their own, and that's exactly what we intend to do. So if anybody in this room right now wants to connect with the Journey program and any other Black, B-L-A-C-K, and let me reiterate that, this doesn't mean if you're not Black, you can come in solidarity and help us. If that means forming a 501c3 to create that task force that Andy Mack stood up here and talked about, because they all have jobs. They all have their own policies. They have their own guidelines. The same way that Officer Stilwell stood up and said that, imagine that he didn't have his uniform on. A lot of them, believe it or not, that's how they have to do their job. They can be in collaboration and have the same understanding as us, but they have to abide by policy as well. So we don't have to abide by their policy. We get to make our own rules. And that's what we intend to do. And that's what's going to happen around here. Because data, paper trail. Because if every single person that's Black within this community had one central location to report everything that's going on, this place will be shut down from the top of the community. So from this day forward, the mission of the Journey program is to organize as many people as possible to create this foundation where we can start supporting people who are being affected by systemic racism in Rochester. Look us up, connect, collaborate with us. We come in peace. All we want to do
in my mind what my white privilege offers me, but I'm a member of the mental health professional.
You know, Rev, I'm gonna excuse me. I will say this, but to make her point, Nashana's point, there is a difference between the words, right? And I think that is something that needs to be talked about and something that needs to be displayed. For the simple fact of there's two different meanings behind the words. I agree with you that no one, I can't even say that. I can't even say that, right? Because for me, I feel like we've been indoctrinated to believe what certain words are, right? But I know from people that family that have been to Africa, that have came from Africa, right? Friends and family. And in certain areas, that word means something else. Kings and queens. It's all of what they've told us. So I think for honestly, I'm gonna be 100% honest, right? The word nigger doesn't even affect me, right? It doesn't even piss me off because it means ignorant, right? It doesn't mean that. It doesn't say, oh, that means black person. No, it just means ignorant, right? In the Webster's dictionary, right? Let's look. Actually, you know what? Fuck that. Let's look it up. Excuse my language, but let's look it up. Nigger definition. Okay, so let's share this tab instead. So, Nick, it's offensive term. Really, we're gonna go there? All right, man. Started in the 1990s, right? Right. Let's share this. All right. Oh, whoops. Let's share this. Oh, whoops. Okay, so am I doing it? Is this coming up? No. The stage. Okay, so here we go. The N word, right? Not to be confused with Negro. Okay. Well, it's a slang term, see, nigga. Not related to the word niggardly. The N word redirects here for other uses. The N word, nigger. In the English language, let's blow this up a little bit. All right, that should be good enough. So, in the English language, is a racial slur directed at black people. Started in the 1990s. Reference to nigger has been increasingly replaced the N-word, notably where is mentioned but not directly used. In an instant, oh, this shit crazy. So, okay, so if you want to look at it, right, they're saying the 1990s. What came out in the 1990s? Right. Hip hop culture. That's exactly where I was about to go with that. Rap. You know, it always did make me wonder, right? Because so then I get it. I'll start saying the N-word. My bad, rap. But when we sit here and we do look at that, look at how it was used in terms of, let's say, literature, right? Because I know teachers that have like Richard Pryor. Oh, definitely Richard Pryor. Oh yeah, I'm not saying that we know I've seen videos from my family in the 70s of them saying the N-word to each other. Right, Eddie Murphy. There were so many more. Red Fox. we know it. You know, I just don't find the word offensive. I think we can learn more from it because for me, I feel like it's all about opinions and how you look at people, right? Because I don't see nobody as being ignorant, right? I don't see that as yes, it's offensive, right? And it has a way But I would say this, right? Because I've had a hell of a wake up experience. You know, I was sitting there in a debate yesterday. You know, because we're doing an event on 30th. I shouldn't even say an event, an initiative, because that's what it is. We're not just doing this for an event. This is Operation Hug the Block is for 90 days. We're doing it the whole summer, right? So, yeah, I just know this, right? Because I really, this kind of just throw my mind off here for a minute. Is there is different variants, you know, when we talk about the N word, and it's derogatory, right? It's derogatory. We can all agree to disagree, but I think where I was going with that is I was over here dazed out for a minute thinking about something. Right. Oh yeah, we definitely it's definitely yeah, them spaces be a trip. And that's the one thing that blows my mind is how is it'll be funny though, because I'm gonna tell you right now, the Trump people, right? The niggas for Trump, the blacks for Trump, after that little interview his son did yesterday, and now they were talking about reparations by two immigrants that have no basis to be talking about reparations. I don't even know why it was brought up in a conversation. But I hope that people look at that and really see that why do we have people talking for us and speaking for us that have no part of it, that have no part of it, that have no parts of it, right? And that's the one thing that, you know, even having conversations with, you know, just like in Rochester last night, the people that got up and really didn't find the N word to be offensive were white people. The two white men that got up that thought it was a First Amendment right. And I know I didn't play the other white guy, but yeah, there was another white man that got up. And it just blew my mind. But then in my mind, I don't even understand how the community's in an uproar over some words, but yet we have all the disparities in Rochester with your kids when it comes to education, when it comes to wealth, when it comes to poverty. And we don't get into uproar over that, but for the simple fact that there's the N word on the bridge. And the only accountability that we could potentially get from that from the justice system. Oh, I know. I know. I know, Rev. I know I hope that's all we can do is hope. And at the end of the day, I'm gonna be 100% honest. Let me finish this thought and I'm gonna get into your comment, because it's not even about accountability. What's going to happen with the N word isn't even about accountability, because it's a misdemeanor, right? But what about our brothers and sisters who have felonies wrongfully and unjustly, and who were this is the one thing that I want people to understand, because we're not calling that out. We're not calling out how the Rochester Police Department uses people inside the community and they pay them to be confidential informants, and our taxpayer dollars pay for that. Nobody wanted to speak on how you had a Olmsted County sheriff out here talking to little girls, and the Rochester Police Department and the Olmsted County Sheriff's Department didn't want to do anything until the FBI came in and they busted him. Then they wanted to do something when they did a sting. Nobody wants to be held their system accountable. And that's why I say this, even the resolution that I have in Red Wing, Minnesota, proclaiming racism a public health crisis, is bullshit. Because it fights that those resolutions are aimed to fight one kind of racism that we can never fight, right? We can never fight somebody's mind. We can never fight the way somebody thinks. Not by legislation, not with some papers, right? So that's how I know that the Democrats that our system isn't serious about change. Now, to get into Reb's comment, I definitely agree with you. And I think people see reparations in all different aspects, right? I will say it like this. My case would be differently than everybody else's case, right? You know, my family, the Francis family, my dad's side of the family, my grandma's side of the family, from Louisiana, who were Louisiana Creole, right? Had sugarcane operations that were taken, that were stolen, right? My uncle was wrongfully convicted and executed not once but twice, Willie Francis. So if we go back into our history, everybody got somebody in their lineage that has been wrongfully something. Either they've had their land stolen, because if you are a true American descendant of slavery, then you have a right to some form of reparations. Because if we can see people like George Floyd's family get 27 million, how about our ancestors that literally died for building this country? Are the plant, the acreage, the land that we've had stolen? Because I see that land back all the time for the Native Americans, but can we give the land back to the American descendants of slavery who had their land stolen? Because the disparities when it comes to wealth is ridiculous, and nobody ever wants to talk about that, of how if you are an American descendant of slavery, if you are a foundational Black American, most of us are in poverty. How is it that you see other people that come over here and put businesses in our community liquor stores? Because you don't see that in Minnetonka, you don't see that in Edina, right? You don't see that in Chanhassen. You don't see liquor stores on every corner. Shit, you don't even see that in Rochester, that there's a liquor store in every corner, but in certain areas. Just like with Red Wing, in certain areas. Nobody ever wants to just see the fucking bigger picture. They want that type of chaos, because I'll tell you right now, if you can be a drug dealer and live good in Minneapolis, right? But take that shit out to the suburbs and live a little bit too large. You think they're going to allow that? Why do you think there's more people sitting in jails for drugs in the rural areas that are Black and brown than in Minneapolis, right? They'll just get him a ticket, boom, boom, and be done with it, right? Hell no, you can get caught in these one little Peckerwood areas. Right. No, right. And that's what's crazy, because that's like the dude from the NAACP in Rochester wanted to bring up Dr. King twice last night. If you don't sit your Nigerian ass down somewhere, my nigga. Oh, whoops. My bad. If he don't sit his ass down somewhere, like that's what is crazy to me, because I'm tired of people speaking for us that don't know nothing about. He only know about Dr. King from reading about him. Now he doesn't understand Dr. King's experience. He sees them words and be like, oh yeah. Man, come on. First of all, Wale, that's what's crazy, is all these positions in Rochester that are for DEI, equity, inclusion, are Africans. They're Nigerian. And what's crazy, the one lady, just because this is what blew my mind, is the city equity lady actually just became an American citizen last year. And I'm glad for that. But damn, what about the people that have been in our community? Yep, thank you. I say that all the time. And you know what's crazy is nobody ever wants to talk about that. Nobody ever wants to talk about that. They always, oh, well, he was this, he was that. So what? That man had a vision, even the Black Panthers, because it's okay to say that we're militant, we're Marxist, we're communist. But then the fact that when we sit here doing the right thing for our communities, y'all will kill us, get rid of us, erase our history, and then say y'all did it. Wick. This is the one thing, the community pantry. Who do you think started that shit? Defeating the breakfast programs, the after school programs, snacks. Because the one thing of it that the Black Panthers taught, you can't do shit without an education, a real education. Because I'll tell you right now, for the way that in my community, I learned more in the streets how to survive in the world than I did in school. You know what's crazy? It wasn't even King's dream, because that I have a dream speech was written by 3 different people. It was written by a Jewish guy, a gay Black man, who is, I'm probably going to get his Rustin, Bayard Rustin. I forgot who the other 2 Jewish guys were. Yeah, that ain't even Dr. King's speech. That's why what's crazy is the Civil Rights Act. If people would really just see that shit for what it really is, right? Because I'll tell you right now that integration fucked us up. Segregation fucked us up, because we should have desegregated so that we could take care of each other, because they're all desegregating. They're all becoming a protected class. You have the Asian hate bill, but there is no Black hate bill. Why is that? Why is that? That's the one crazy part that people don't even understand. Just like with I don't see nobody talking about the African American Preservation Act anymore in Minnesota. But I'll tell you one thing that's going to get passed, and it's going to get passed very soon, is that Minnesota is going to be a sanctuary state. All because of this Uber Lyft shit. All because of this Uber Lyft shit. You literally have Democrats in the House and Senate that are going to hold their votes. You have a little crew of people that are going to hold their votes for hostage because they got to get certain things passed. And they need them, right? They need them for them bills. And that's how that's how the North Star Act is going to get passed. That's how that monthly income, basic or guaranteed income program is going to get passed. All because you have immigrant legislators like Zanaa Muhammad, Omar Fatih are going to hold their votes hostage. But then they have a crew of people with them. It's not just them. They have a crew, because you have Muhammad Noor. That's one crazy thing. And I just hope that I never mind if people ain't watching it. Because everybody's going to complain afterwards, right? And that's the one thing that I will say this, right? Because somebody said that I was begging and pandering to Walter and AK yesterday, right? I don't see it as that, right? I don't even know. Here's the thing of it is, because I'm not a Republican. I don't know if I am. I know I'm not a fucking Democrat, right? I know that their policies have hurt my community. They have made our communities generational victims and gave us that victim mentality instead of that victor mentality, right? All because of legislation. And that we've had to feel like we need this or we need that, when the whole time we haven't. If we just understood, if we understood our history, if we understood where we came from, because we are kings, we are queens. That's the one crazy thing of finding out all the land that my family owned between St. Martinsville Parish in Louisiana and Port Arthur. It blew my mind. And then it made me wonder of like, damn, how many other people's families, if they really dug deep into their, because I'll tell you right now, stop claiming y'all from Chicago when your ancestors ain't from there. They from down south somewhere. That's what people really need to understand. Do your lineage. Do your history. Find out where you come from. Find out where your roots are at. Because I'm finding out that, damn, yeah, Minnesota's my home. Like, yeah, I was born, raised here, right? But my grandparents weren't. I'm finding a hell of a story as I go through my family's history. A hell of a story of finding Black business owners way before the Civil Rights Act. Way before the Civil Rights Act. Seeing college-educated individuals way before the Civil Rights Act. Or seeing successful Black people with no college education. But we're seen as prosperous. We're seen as individuals that people wanted to be like. Because talent, God's gifts, have gotten us to where America is today. And yet, have we ever been fully paid for our ancestors? Have we? Because I miss going to go get Aunt Jemima pancake syrup. Or Aunt Jemima Uncle Ben rice. I miss that shit. And we have to understand that yeah, it was probably done wrong, but let's fight to get that family more money, an equal share of the profits of something that their ancestors built. Right? Let's not get rid of, because all we're allowing them to do is erase history. We're allowing them, all because of something that we feel might be detrimental or hateful. We really need to think about that. We're allowing them to erase our history, where there is already enough of our history already erased because of fires. That's the one thing that people don't even understand. That between 1890 and 1900, there is a lot of census records missing in a lot of states because of fires. And that our U.S. Congress had to literally write legislation to be able to get rid of those records. If you look it up, 1921, right? Look it up, because there was a fire in 1913, or maybe it was 1908, something like that. But there was literally a fire with our census records. Minnesota, that's why it's hard to find certain, even though there was lynchings, there were certain people that you knew they were here, but yet you can't find the history of them between those years. It's because of the census records. And I tell people that all the time. I didn't know that until I started to look into history and started to understand why I couldn't find certain things. It's because there is no records. There was, but they're gone. That's why it's hard to find the young man who was hung in Red Wing on the railroad tracks by the fucking Mississippi River. But if you go into our Goodhue County, the Goodhue County Historical Society building, you go and look up the newspapers. You go look up the Republican newspaper that Mr. Lucius had, right? Or you look up the race riots in the railroad tracks that year of 1893, and you'll see, oh wow, damn, there really was a riot in Red Wing. Wow. And then you find out why, because there was a strike and the railroad company hired Black people from Chicago and down south and brought them up here. And then how'd they get rid of them? They lynched the Black man. They lynched a local, not somebody that came from out of town, a local. They lynched the local. So yeah, it's not them about them wearing masks, because the mask been covered back. We've been unpeeled the mask a long time ago. We know that they were teachers, right? We know that there's judges. We know that there's doctors that don't like us, right? But we also know that there is a system in place that protects them and not us, protects their privilege, right? Their right, all because of it, not because of their race so much, but because of a title. And that's what I don't believe there is a white supremacy. To me, it's a supremacy system to oppress poor, but especially when it comes to Black Americans, because they don't want us to get our fair share. They don't ever want us to be equals. They don't ever want to be seen as people that came from slaves. I'm going to keep it a buck. I'm going to keep it a buck. They don't ever want to be seen as people that came from slaves, that got whipped if we didn't listen. Why do you think they be so eager when we fuck up to arrest us, to put us behind bars, to put us in spit masks, or to hog tie us? Because I don't know how many goddamn videos I done seen body cam footage of every time a police officer get a Black man handcuffed, of how that motherfucking grin turns smiley. I got me one. Let's have that conversation. So I am on hiatus. I just did this because I feel like I needed to talk, and I'm hoping that people do come out. And it's not about just speaking anymore, right? Because I want people to remember this, and this is another reason why Black Lives the Streets is doing Operation Hug the Block, right? And we're not just hugging the block on 36th and Penn. This is about North, South Minneapolis. This is about Minneapolis as a whole. This is about the Twin Cities as a whole, right? About Minnesota as a whole, because I'm hoping that just like when we did this in 2021, but now that we know we're better set up, right, is to reach people regardless of wherever you're from. Doesn't matter if you're from Arkansas, because we've had people in 2021 and in 2021 that were out there on 36th and Penn that were from Arkansas, that were from New York, that were from California. So if those type of people can literally come out here and join us, because they joined us from the George Floyd uprising, and we formed a bond, and those bonds maybe not be the same anymore, but that doesn't mean that we still can't get that unity, right? Because I'll tell you right now that I'm reaching out to everybody. That doesn't even matter if these people don't like me. You know, people are asking me, can they do it publicly, share it publicly? Yes. Why should I be scared to come out? Why? This isn't about me. This is about protecting our communities. This is about making America's streets safe again. This is about taking our streets back, about us taking our communities back. This is about us holding our communities accountable. This is about us holding each other accountable. Because there is $1.1 billion. 1.1 billion. And are we going to see change? Because I shouldn't see posts coming from schools, Black charter schools, begging for money to teach our kids, because the system won't do it. I shouldn't see posts about people talking about homeschooling your kids when our taxpayer dollars, and we have a whole public school education system. Let's correct that, right? Because people have lost their kids for taking their kids out of school. Yeah, the system is fucked up. I agree 100%, but let's change it. Let's call it out. Let's stop just letting this shit to go on. Because right now people should be pissed off about the 28 employees that were just fired at Google, for the simple fact that they were tired of Google having business dealings with Israel and the things that they're doing. Right? Because we have to understand that even our taxpayer dollars are paying for a genocide, are paying for a war that affects us, that is going to affect our kids, that is going to affect our loved ones. Because are our kids going to be called to go to war? Because how many people are going to allow their kids to go to war, knowing that they're going to go fight something that we shouldn't be involved in, that we're literally funding on both sides? Because how you give money to Iran and Israel? That makes no fucking sense to me. That makes none. How do you give? That's what's crazy. But what's crazy is it happens here in America too, right? Because they fund the criminals with guns and drugs, and then our taxpayer dollars fund the police departments to combat it. Yeah, I'm gonna say it again. Our government causes the violence, causes the Drug Enforcement Agency, the ATF, the FBI, the CIA, the Alphabet Boys. So I just want people to think about that. If they weren't bringing guns and drugs into our community, we wouldn't have a guns and drug issue. Let that sink in. If they didn't bring the guns and the drugs in, we wouldn't be having these issues. We wouldn't be having these issues. If they would really take the war on drugs serious, because right now the shit that they're doing is play. It's laughable. It's comedy. It's humorous. It's literally like watching a movie, because that's what we're dealing with. So I hope everybody has a great day. I don't know when I'll be back. Probably a couple days. You know how it goes. There is an event going on this Saturday in Rochester at 11 a.m. By Century High School. I think people should get involved, and not just because there was a sign, but because we should be tired of this shit. We should be tired of the racism, right? We should be tired that we have to continually having these conversations and we get nowhere with it. Because when is the next town hall? Are they going to wait for the next? Because just like Nashana said, we were literally just at one, a town hall, talking about racism, talking about the problems inside of our community that continually going on today. But what's crazy is that was state representatives that were there. At that one, you had CMAH, you had Esther, you had Liz Bolden, Kim Hicks, all Minnesota representatives from the House and the Senate. And yet we still ain't getting no change. We still ain't getting no change because they don't want it to change. They want us to keep on being products of chaos, because chaos pays. If it doesn't make dollars, it doesn't make sense. And that's the crazy part. We're worth more dead than we are alive to our families. So I want people to understand that, right? Because we're just money to them. Think about that. When George Floyd was killed by the Minneapolis Police Department, right? 27 million. But yet a veteran officer mistakes her taser for her gun and negligently kills a black man. God, fuck this stream. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Crazy ass people on Rumble. But just think about that. Think about that. 27 compared to 3.5. A little shade under 3.5. And then the age difference. Ain't nobody talking about victimhood. First of all, these people be insane. Why don't you listen to the whole thing before you just spew off and get on because you came on at a certain point? Thank you. That's why I love Rumble, right? That's why I love Rumble, because that's where you have the Republicans at, and they show their true colors. That's why I don't know if I'm a Republican, because some of these idiots do show their true colors. But then again, you have the same shit with the Democrats. But at least these people let you know. They don't. The liberals, they just do it behind your back and don't say it to your face. At least these people, they do. Goodbye. So everybody have a great one. Win or fail, freedom or jail, heaven or hell, wish me well. Y'all have a great one.
Urban conservative.